Welcome to the home for the Tentative Yogi. I teach yoga from the bottom up, from the foundation, so you can learn it safely and enjoy it for years to come, preferably injury-free. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you, I'm going to say a quick tip, but it's not really all that quick. Hang in there. Whether or not you need to sit on a blanket in Dandasana. Okay, this is one of those poses where I really insist most students use props. Now, if you've seen my entire prop series, and I will link to it here, I actually talk about the pros and cons of props. I use them in my own practice. I use them in my teaching, but I don't use them heavily. I do feel like there's pros and cons to the props for sure. I share all about it in that video. Dandasana is one where 90% of the time, maybe even more, you need to have a blanket, and to not use it is going to take away from your enjoyment of the pose. It's going to take away from the alignment of the pose, and it really could quite possibly over time injure you. So I want to look at that today and then share with you what you can do to see if you need to use a blanket for this pose. Okay, so Dandasana is this pose. Okay, so it is legs straight out, staff pose. Here's the thing. You need to get at a right angle at the hips in order to be in this pose safely. You want to have your pelvis aligned, so you're sitting right on your sit bones. If you're not quite sure what your sit bones are, you can check this video. I did one on that because they're really important. I'm going to say one of the most important anatomical things to know about in your body if you're going to be doing yoga for sure. So if you're on top of your sit bones, you know the pelvis is level. Now, here's the thing. Okay, your sit bones are the bones at the very base of your pelvis, right? They're the little bony nodules you can feel. Your hamstrings are attached to your sit bones. Your hamstrings run down the back of your leg. I'm going to take this out so you can really see this. So here's the thing. When your hamstrings are tight, which most people's are, it's actually pretty rare when your hamstrings aren't tight. Then what happens is they pull your sit bones, right? They pull it tight, which pulls your pelvis under, which causes you to round. You need to be up on top of the sit bones in order to get that neutral curve in the lower back, in order for the body to be aligned and to be in a safe place. So your hamstrings have to be flexible enough to get up on top of the sit bones. And it might look like I'm there, but I can tell I'm not. I need a blanket. Now, the second piece you have to have in working for you, if you will, is a strong core, because it is the core, even if the hamstrings are loose enough, it's the core that gets you upright. And it is very rare to find someone who has both core strength and flexibility, enough flexibility in the hamstrings to get up on top of the sit bones. So this is what I see more often than not, and sometimes it's even worse, like this. And then when you add things like twisting to this, does this kind of make you cringe, I hope? Or forward folding from here. You're not really forward folding, you're just rounding the back. Forward folding comes from the bend at the hip hinge, right? So the pelvis is what's tipping. But if you can't even get on top of the pelvis, then you can't fold from there. Okay, so how do you know if you need to use a blanket? You're going to do feet up the wall. Okay, so as you take your feet up the wall, so this is essentially lying Tadasana, right? So you get your sit bones all the way to the wall. And first of all, if you can't get your sit bones to the wall and have your legs straight, you definitely need a blanket. But if you can get them sit bones all the way to the wall, you want to feel if you can pull the lower back off the floor. If you can get your neutral curve into the lower back, right? That lumbar curve is concave, so it should be off the floor even just a little. And I can just a little, but I also know it's not enough. It's not my alignment and my good alignment, right? My right alignment. And it's also really hard to do for me. And it should be really easy because it's in this position, because when I come up to sitting, it is that much harder to get yourself in that alignment. So when you add a blanket, what you are essentially doing is, instead of having to be at 90 degrees, now it's more like 100 degrees. And that's okay. right? And you also might need to bend your knees a little bit, and that's fine too. I would so much rather see this than this, because this is just going to cause back issues. It's going to be uncomfortable. You are so not going to enjoy the pose. Now, let me add one more point before I finish. When you go asymmetrical, so say you're pulling back a foot for a forward fold, it is much easier because now you're only, I was going to say fighting one hamstring, but I'll just say it. You're only working with one hamstring. So whereas this might be really hard, it is for me, this is actually pretty easy. So I don't need to bend the knee for this, even though with both legs I might. So you can play with that in your own practice and see how it feels for you. All right, I would love to know what you think and how this feels for you. And let me know if you have any questions at all. Comment below if you have any comments. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this, and definitely subscribe so you find out every time that I drop another video. Thanks so much for joining me. Namaste.